What's up? My name's Jackie. I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic, and I've been sober and clean 10 years now. I always like to put that at the beginning of a story time video like this just for context. Today's video is a rehab story time set when I was in my early 20s and I was sentenced or court ordered, felt like a sentence at the time. I was court ordered to do 30 days in rehab. And so yeah, well, I was still really young in my addiction. I thought I knew everything at this point in my life. I feel like as a young adult, it was around when I turned 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. During those years, I was so young and so fresh into the world, like on my own, not living like under the rules and the household of my parents, but I was just out in the world exploring, learning firsthand, and I was very overconfident, you could say, and overconfident in believing that I knew things that I actually really didn't know anything about, but I believed I knew everything. Does that make sense? So I'm in the rehab and I'm sitting around and I'm in a rundown rehab because I don't have good insurance. I don't even think I had insurance. And so it was just a room full of those folding, like aluminum folding chairs on all sides of the walls except for the doorway. And we're sitting around there and we spend 6 to 8 hours inside this room every single day. They bring different teachers in, but really what they're doing is they're just lecturing us. And because I don't learn in this format of lecture, I am just like being tortured to death. And all I can think about is, I don't belong here. I'm not an addict. I'm not an alcoholic. Why does the court keep sending me to rehab? And I have to be at least 22, 23 at this time. And this is probably my second rehab. There will be far more to come in the future, but at this point, this is my second rehab attempt. And I'm not there because I want to get clean. I'm not there because I want to be sober. I'm there because I need to get the courts off my back. I need to finish this out so I don't go back to jail. So I'm sitting around and I'm kind of sizing up all the different people that are in the room. And most of them are black or Mexican. There's very few white people, and the white people that are in there are like really run down looking. They're old, they're wrinkled, they're shriveled up. And then a lot of the other people that are in there, whether black, Mexican, or like me, a little bit of mix of different races, um, they were kind of like middle-aged or on the younger side, but they were really energetic and really loud and really bragging about all the wrong things, in my opinion. I was thinking, why are they so proud of all you heard was my John this and my John that and blah 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 and I did this and my John did that, and it was kind of exhausting to hear about because a John is somebody like, it's like they're saying their date. It's just somebody that they were paid to have sex with. They're bragging about being prostitutes and all the different things that they were able to get out of their different dates, or Johns as they would say. And to me, I was like repulsed at this idea. I'm like judging them so hard because when I was a young adult, I was really judgmental. And now looking back, it's because I was raised in a very judgmental Catholic household. And so, without really even meaning to, I passed down judgments onto other people that I didn't know, because that's sort of what had been happening to me my whole life growing up. I had been being judged and being judged very harshly for everything I did that was considered wrong or bad. And so, anyway, because I didn't believe that selling yourself for drugs was anything to be proud of, I was repulsed and disgusted that this is what they were proud of and this is what they actually thought was like good. And I was just repulsed at this was what they thought was worth bragging about. And so all I could think was, I don't belong here. I don't fucking belong here. These people need the help. These are like straight up drug addicts. The other thing was the majority of them smoked crack. And that's the other thing I couldn't relate to at all. And I just thought, that's pathetic. Like, they're crackheads. Because when I was a young adult, I didn't know anybody that smoked crack. Matter of fact, all of my addiction, I only ever encountered about 4 people that smoked crack. And it was always seen as this sort of like lowly, pathetic thing, like, oh, you don't have enough money for like real drugs? That's what you're gonna do? Crack? The high lasts for like 5 fucking seconds, then you're back out to get another thing. You might as well get some heavier hitting drugs, was my thought, like more bang for your buck. So if you're doing crack, I'm just thinking like, you're stupid, right? You're just stupid. And you obviously have a drug problem. If you can't stop smoking crack, you definitely need to be here. Like, you need the help. You definitely need to be here. Now I know how harsh these judgments are, but this is how I thought when I was young and in my early 20s. I thought I was not an addict, not an alcoholic. So in a way, I was thinking like, I'm better than these people. You know, I can look at them and be like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, I don't need the help. I'm fine. And the other thing was they looked really run down. Like, I was still young. And so even though I was using heavily, I hadn't lost, like, I'll give you an example. Okay. So as you get older, your face, like, it's more lifted. So like my face was more like this, and it's less like puffy. I don't know. I just had a more lean face. I'll insert some pictures if I have any. I felt confident in how I looked, right? I felt confident because of all the attention I was getting out in the world from different men and people that were pursuing me, that wanted to date me. And even though I didn't want to have a boyfriend or settle down and have a family and have a husband, and I wasn't interested in a long-term relationship, I was still being very heavily pursued. And I wasn't being looked at like, oh yeah, she looks run down, like the drugs have run their course. When I saw these people that I was in rehab with, that's what they looked like. Like the world had chewed them up, spit them out, and this was what was left that needed to be like rebuilt and rehabbed and rehabilitated. They needed to rebuild themselves to look healthy. And then after like 30 days, you could visibly see a difference. Like they had this very sunken, sallow look, and they were really skinny. And while I thought being skinny was definitely an asset, this was not that type of skinny. This was more like a sickly skinny, like a crackhead skinny. And when they were in, and some of them did meth too, but at the time I wasn't messing with meth. I was doing cocaine. So I thought, these people are just like poor and I feel bad for them. Even though I didn't have a lot of money, I still felt like they were like way below where I was at. And they were coming off the street, they were homeless. I always had somewhere to go, even if I was technically without a home or unhoused, however you want to say it. I always had somewhere I could crash. I was kind of like constantly in motion and in movement. And at times I would settle down and get an apartment, and then I would move on again and do the whole couch surfing thing. But still in my head, I thought, I'm better than this. This is not me. I'm not an addict. This is what an addict looks like. This is what an addict looks like. This is what an addict behaves like. And then I could look to some of the other women, like the older white women. That's what an alcoholic looks like. That's what an alcoholic sounds like as they tell their stories and they talk about not wanting to do anything else except smoke crack, or first thing in the morning, as soon as they wake up, they have to have a drink. And I'm thinking, that's not me. Like, I can go till the evening and have a drink, or I don't even have to drink every day. Drinking isn't the be all end all for me. But I wasn't thinking of the perspective of drugs, like how many days did I go without putting anything into my system? And for the most part, when I woke up, I did use drugs, but I only wanted to see things how I wanted to see them so that I could justify my own use. So I'm sitting around, and then the new girl comes in And I'm looking at her like, damn, she looks familiar. We probably partied together. No, that's not it. So she sits down next to me, and then it hit me. I'm like, Sadie, is that you? She's like, yeah. And she's just visibly tired and like worn out. And she looks like absolute shit. She has no color on her skin, and she has that same sunken in sort of look. She's really skinny. I'm like, hey, it's Jackie. We played soccer together. Do you remember in high school? And then she does, and she's like, Jackie, what's up? And we catch up for a few minutes, and I look, and as she's talking, like her teeth are jagged, and she used to have like a really perfect, like all American smile. She's really pretty, and she's still pretty, but the prettiness is being kind of muddled down with all these signs of like heavy drug use. So her skin isn't radiant at all. There's like no color to it. Her hair isn't like, it's just kind of like, and then she just looks tired, so tired. And I'm just like, she's definitely lost weight. She used to be a healthy, athletic soccer player. She was a varsity soccer player. I was JV, so I'm like, not sure if she would actually remember me. She was super popular, and I wasn't, I wouldn't say unpopular, but I wasn't popular. Like, people talked to me, and I wasn't on Outcast or anything like that in high school, but I wasn't with the in group. She was with the in group. She was like a cheerleader, and she had guys just wanting to date her left and right because she also, like I said, she was pretty, and she had a huge set of like triple or double D's. I remember when we played soccer, her chest, her boobs were so big that she had to wear 3 sports bras just so they wouldn't like flop around and hit her, like she said, under her chin. And I'm looking at her, and I'm just like, what the fuck happened to you? Are you okay? And I'm actually worried about her. And she's saying how they just did the tuberculosis test. I think that's how you say it. Whenever you go into treatment, they test you for STDs. They also test you for tuberculosis before you can be like fully admitted into treatment. And she starts coughing a lot, and I'm just like, damn, like she's in bad health. Um, she's telling me how she got into doing meth, and she's doing all the time, and now she needs to get help for it. And in my mind, I just can't like unsee the girl that I knew in high school, and she was so fun loving. She was funny. She was energetic. Even though she was popular, she wasn't a mean popular person. She still had a good heart. And now I'm seeing her, and she's just totally worn down and exhausted. And she looks like all these other women in the room. But the main difference is like, I can look around at these other women, and I don't know them. I don't actually know them. And I can say, well, they're old, and they made bad choices. Like, this is on them. But we're the same age, and we have the same background. We went to the same school. And for those that don't know, I went to a private Catholic school. It's like we had all of the reasons to not do this, but we chose to do this. And so that's when everything kind of shattered in my mind of like, or I don't want to say her real name. Sadie's definitely an addict. Sadie's definitely an addict. And she is my age, and she looks so run down. And so who's to say in like a few years, if I keep doing like this, that I'll look like that? I guess I could. I guess it's possible. So even though I wasn't ready to admit like I'm an addict, I have a problem, I was just getting started. Well, I'd been using since I was 14. I'm about 22 at this point, but I'm going to keep using until I'm 28, and I'm going to go a lot harder in the last 4 years. But this was sort of the moment where all the preconceived notions I had about what an addict looks like, how they act, who they are, why they did what they did, it was all shattered. Because at that point, I started to open my mind to like the idea that, okay, maybe I just listen while I'm in here. Like maybe I learn something while I'm in here. I don't want to be here, but because I have to be here, I might as well get something out of it. And so I did open my mind a bit, and Sadie never joined because a few minutes later they came and pulled her out. The rumor was that she had tuberculosis and the test came back positive, and so she couldn't join. I don't know if that was true or not, but I definitely learned, I think, what I was supposed to learn just in seeing her and talking to her for those few minutes. That was so profound. And even though I wasn't ready to clean up and I wasn't going to clean up for a long time, this is why I think when somebody goes into treatment, you never know. I mean, it's an opportunity. As long as you stay off of the drugs and the alcohol while you're in treatment, which it's easy to use sometimes while you're in there, depending who you're in there with. I've definitely relapsed while I've been in treatment, but I think while you're in there, it's so interesting the things that your mind will pick up on, and it'll kind of like save for the future. So many things I learned were like seeds of recovery that were planted in the times that I was in rehab. And then when I was back out using, these sort of seeds would haunt me and things like that, just knowing I couldn't forget. The biggest thing it was able to do, seeing Sadie like that, was it was able for me to open my mind to see the different women in a different light. Like, they were all young at one point. They were all probably beautiful in their own way. This isn't who they thought they were going to become, but they've been in it so long. This is like what they have become, but it's probably not what any of them wanted. And so then I was able to spend the rest of my treatment thinking a little bit more openly. I still had a lot of harsh thoughts and judgments towards others, but it was kind of like the beginning of expanding my mind a little bit and having compassion for people that I didn't know, but that I didn't have to be so harsh with without knowing them. So I was able to listen to their stories with an open heart from that point on. Maybe not perfect, but with a lot more of an open heart than I was really, really closed off in the beginning. And the more times I went through treatment, the more this became something I was able to do, was just to see that like we are all connected with the different emotions and the different circumstances that we struggle with, and the reason that we use whatever it is we're trying to escape from. We all kind of have that in common. Whether you used this drug or you used that drug, by the end of it all, that didn't matter so much. It was just that you're struggling with this, you want to get better, and we're all here to get better in some way. Now, in the early times, no, I wasn't there to get better, so it was very hard for me to make any progress. That was about the biggest progress I made in that particular one, but every rehab that I went to from then on, the addiction would run me down a little bit more, and then I would be a little bit more open to the idea of admitting that I needed the help or that I had a problem, until finally I did come to that realization for myself. So just wanted to throw that out there and encourage anybody that if you keep getting sent to rehab, there may be like this lesson that you need to learn from it. And I believe that life has a way of, like, if we aren't learning a lesson, it has a way of putting us in like fully into that role. So like me, I had to fully become an out of control addict, junkie, and alcoholic before I could actually really understand what it's like to be in that position. And then I could really have empathy and compassion for others in that position, but not until I went through it. And also loving somebody, being in love with somebody that fell so heavily into addiction and was unable to come out of it. That was another thing that helped me, because then I was able to feel a lot more of the pain that my families, especially my mom and dad, had to go through, because they loved me and I kept choosing to self-destruct. And so when I was in love with an addict and having to watch him self-destruct, I got a little, just a tiny, I got my own taste of how that feels to be so helpless and to be in so much pain as you watch the person you love more than anything in the world go down that road and just self-destruct into nothingness. And you have to either watch it, or you have to draw boundaries where you can no longer be in their life until they're willing to work on their problem. So I couldn't unsee or unknow the fact that now an addict wasn't just this particular stereotype I had in mind, this cracked out prostitute or rundown homeless person that there was no hope for. They were old and they were just used up, and this is what an addict or an alcoholic looked like. They weren't going to get sober. They were going to just keep cycling through the system, because that's the majority of what I saw while I was in rehab. But the more I went into the rehabs, the more I was exposed to more and more people. I was exposed to people that had a lot of money, and Sadie wasn't just one example of that. Money, just because you have money doesn't mean you can't be an addict. Just because you're pretty doesn't mean the addiction can't turn you into somebody that is ugly by the time it's done with you. Just because you come from a family that doesn't have any inherent like dysfunction doesn't mean that you can't have your own dysfunction in addiction. Just because you have every opportunity to succeed doesn't mean you can't fall into addiction. Just because you're beautiful and it seems like on the outside you have everything, you could still fall into addiction. It was just eye-opening for me. Some more, it warmed up my mind to the idea that I may have an addiction. I had to kind of run every experiment just to make sure for myself that I actually was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And I accepted that I was a drug addict before I accepted that I was an alcoholic. But then when I kept drinking and ended up relapsing and overdosing, that's when I finally accepted, yep, I'm also an alcoholic. I can't just drink, because the drinking is always going to lead me back to the drugs at some point or another. And now, because I'm a mom, I can't risk it. So that's what I wanted to share today. I hope this story wasn't too long, but yeah, I would love to hear what was something that you had in your mind as like a young person that you just believed like this is how it is. I know, don't try to tell me anything different. And then somewhere along the way you realized I knew nothing and that wasn't true. What I thought I knew, it wasn't true, and I actually have so much more to learn. So for me, that was definitely stereotyping addicts and alcoholics and judging them very harshly. And I myself was going to grow into be like the ultimate junkie and alcoholic, and then I judged myself really harshly for becoming that. But I'm glad to say that that is no longer where I'm at. I can only say thank you to anybody that encouraged and supported me sobering up. And by the grace of God, I was able to come out of that. But I definitely could not have done it all by myself. And so I'm just thankful to be sober, thankful to have a life that I actually am excited to live. And if you're ever wondering where I am in the meantime, I'm on my second YouTube channel where I'm making art. It's all about like sustainable art. And so if you're ever wondering like where I went, that's where I'm at in the meantime. And I'm also in the process of expanding my business. So I'm very busy in this way, but it's work that I love doing. So it doesn't feel like work at all. So I'm not leaving this channel, but I'm coming on here when I have like, it's just a no pressure situation when I want to share something about addiction and recovery. So thank you to everybody who supports and encourages me in my recovery. I will do the same for you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.